What's that sound? It's For Amusement Only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast. Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Still with a head cold, but feeling better than yesterday. I managed to strip and clean a Bright Lights Playfield that came as part of my Turf King pickup, and it is ready for wall hanging until somebody needs one. So, should the need arise for a Bright Lights Playfield, let me know. I've got one. Tonight's episode is all about 1958's Bally, Carnival Queen. Now, longtime listeners may be saying, hey, wait a minute, you've already talked about Circus Queen, but that's actually a different game. Carnival Queen was the first Magic Screen game. Before we get into the intricacies of Magic Screens and Magic Screen gameplay, I thought I'd take a moment and talk about what exactly a bingo pinball is. Remember that for every episode, this is somebody's first episode, potentially. A bingo pinball machine is simply a pinball machine where you put a nickel in, the game resets, a ball is loaded to the shooter lane, and at that point, you can play more coins to try and gain further advantage in the game. So by default, the game will load with the lowest possible odds. It will also load with no features, typically. Unless you're really bad, like I am. In which case it'll give you lots of pity features. But the thing about these games is that there are multiple phases of play. The very first thing you need to do is decide how much money you're going to spend on this particular game. It's very easy for the machine to take $1, $2, even more worth of nickels, and you still may not have maxed out all of the advantages necessarily. This is in part due to the very complex design of these machines, and also in part due to several mechanisms in particular. All have to be in a particular alignment in order for you to earn certain features. Also, on some games, if you earn a feature, it prevents you from earning another feature. But, by default, you get 5 balls. If you plunge your balls and land in holes which are adjacent for 3, 4, or 5 in a row, then you earn a certain amount of replays. At a minimum, you earn 4 replays for 3 in a row, 16 for 4 in a row, and 75 for 5 in a row. And you can earn all the way up to 192 for 3 in a row, 480 for 4 in a row, and 600 for 5 in a row. Now, the way that you earn these replays can actually vary by game. In Carnival Queen's case, this is a game with triple deck scoring. That means that some lines on the bingo card on the Backglass are red, some are green, and some are yellow. And depending on which line you're in, your winner is in, it will determine how many replays you win, because the red, green, and yellow odds all advance independently. Now, I mentioned this was the first Magic Screen game. And what is important about that is that Magic Screen games are typically considered the best of all Bally bingos. And this is by many of the folks that I've talked to. I really love Magic Screens. They were my first introduction to bingos. And when you hear how complex the gameplay is, I just find it absolutely fascinating that they were able to do all this electromechanically. So, by default, as I mentioned, you have a bingo card, and it's made up of 25 numbers. The playfield has a corresponding 25 numbers and a ball return at the bottom. If you make the ball travel all the way down the playfield to the bottom and hit the ball return, it comes right back to you, no penalty. The game doesn't end until you shoot all 5 balls, and at that point, you have another decision point. You can put in more money to try and earn extra balls, up to 3. But it usually takes quite a bit of money in order to free up an extra ball. So I really typically only play for those if I have a really sure thing going. Now, back to the magic screen. You got your normal 25 number grid, but the magic screen feature allows you to move the actual card over, shift it to the left. And as you shift it, it will reveal different colored sections. These sections are special in that you only need 3, 4, or 5 in the section, not adjacent, but in the section at all in order to win. To make things even more interesting, you can have part of a section exposed and part of the normal bingo card exposed and actually win in both areas. Now, Carnival Queen has 7 different positions. When you push the left arrow and you have the feature lit up to G, you can hold it down for 7 changes of the screen. This will reveal several different sections: a red and white striped section, a yellow and black striped section, a green section, a blue section, and more. Each of these scores as per the corresponding odds on the backglass, just as if you had 3 in a row in the yellow. If you get 3 in the yellow section, then you get the 3 in a row replays award. Now, I mentioned these sections with the stripes. There's a yellow section with black stripes and a red section with white stripes. These are called the super sections. And the game will light these independently and randomly. And if you are awarded these super sections and you manage to sink only 2 balls in the section, it scores as if you had put 3. If you put 3 balls in the section, it scores as 4, and 4 scores as 5. The blue section I mentioned is a special L-shaped, reverse L-shaped section that's only 3 numbers wide. Or only contains 3 numbers. That's a better way to phrase that. If you manage to sink a ball in each of the 3 exposed blue holes, then you'll earn the replays for a green 5 in a line. Randomly, the machine will award you 2 in the blue, scores green 5. This game had what's called an extended time tree, where by default, you're locked out of moving those sections, moving that screen before shooting your 4th ball. But the game will randomly award and will also light rollovers, which, if hit, will extend your time tree to before the 5th ball. This game was also the first game which had player-controlled replay registration. And you do this by hitting the R button on the footrail, the lockdown bar. This is crucially important and is actually part of the strategy of playing a bingo moving forward. Earlier games would automatically count your replays as soon as you had made them and the timing features were complete. At a certain point, Bally shifted to starting to count your replays immediately rather than waiting for the feature to time out, and this allowed you to score in multiple sections. Well, with the advent of the magic screen, Bally again innovated and made it so that the player could control the tightness of the machine. Now, when I say the tightness, I mean that as you win replays on the machine will start to ratchet up something called the reflex unit. The reflex unit, as it steps up, makes it more difficult for you to achieve step-ups in your odds or your features. In this way, it punishes a good player, or at least attempts to level the playing field for somebody who is winning a large amount of replays, by making it so that you have to drop in perhaps 5 nickels to light what would take previously only 1 nickel to light. And this has a randomized effect along with the other units in the game, which, when taken in total, award you the odds and features jumps that I was just talking about. So, this is ingenious. And the thing about the R button is that you can wait to register your replays until after you've earned an extra ball or two. Now think about that for a moment. It costs you less to get an extra ball before you earn your replays. So, once you push the R button and you start racking up those replays, it costs you many more replays to earn an extra ball than it would before you started. So, always something to think about and keep in the back of your head. But the downside of this is that if you tilt, you lose your entire bet, and you do not get to collect any replays whatsoever. Doesn't matter if you had a winner or not. So in this way, Bally really made this a thinking game all the way through. Previous games required you to think at multiple times during the game, but few of them required you to make a decision before each plunge and before even collecting your win. This is one of the things that I really admire about Bally's engineering efforts. It's amazing to me all the things that Don Hooker and his team thought of to put in these games, to entice players, to bring them back, to make them put in more money, and also to reward the players. Yes, that's always been a part of the formula, keep them coming back. You don't want people to be turned off of the game because they never win. Although that can happen, if you're not a skilled player, then yeah, you won't win. Every once in a while you may luck into a 3 in a row or whatever, but it really takes skill to play these games. So, all that said, Carnival Queen is a great first Magic Screen effort. And as you'll hear, they just improved from here on out. Very impressive. So let's talk about the artwork. This game is absolutely beautiful. You have, on the Backglass, of course it's carnival themed, you have a variety of women standing on the street during a carnival. There's ticker tape and balloons falling from the sky. It looks to be nighttime. There's a mime in the middle of the background, standing next to one of the women. And in the far background you have a park, and behind that you have a cityscape. There are spotlights in the distant background which are shining up into the night sky. Very colorful, very attractive glass. And then moving to the cabinet, you see the Carnival theme extended. On the sides of the cabinet, you have flags, musical notes, and stars, along with masquerade masks. This theme also extends to the front of the cab with more masquerade masks. And then on the playfield, you have many women dancing or hanging out at the carnival outside. Overhead, there are fireworks going off. And there are flowers and other vegetation hanging out at the bottom of the playfield and at the top in the background. Very lively, very colorful, and uses a nice shade of blue. As I say, I think it's very attractive. Now, one interesting thing to note is that this game came with a card for the operator. It says, important, R button must be pressed to register replays. Press R button after shooting fourth ball. Score void if game is tilted. Now, that's a point about the R button that I didn't mention. You can collect your replays early as well. You can collect them after shooting your fourth ball. You don't have to wait for your feature to time out. The game used to do that automatically, but now it's under the player's control. Well, that was a long and winding episode. Thank you very much for listening. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call me on the Bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Cast via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, also at Bingo Podcast, or you can listen to us on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com, at which you can order your very own For Amusement Only t-shirt. And who doesn't want a tiny illustration of me joining them in their day-to-day life? As you run errands, I'll be there. As you listen to For Amusement Only, I'll be there, of course. Even if you listen to other podcasts, I won't be offended. I'll still be there. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.